Hello, good afternoon. It is 4 o'clock and we had an appointment at 4 o'clock. It is lovely to see you. I hope you had a spectacular day. I hope everyone's keeping warm, wearing their mittens and their ear muffs and their whatever else you wear to keep warm when it's no degrees outside. Did you notice how when you go outside today, it hurts your face? That's the kind of cold it is. Really not attractive. So I do have to say, about 35 minutes ago, I was just informed that the Erasure concert that I was going to next Friday night at Radio City had been postponed. So I had to play a little Erasure for you. What a bummer. I hate COVID. Anybody else really sick of it? Just by a show of hands? My God in heaven. Can't travel the way we want to. We can't go to concerts. What is the point of life if you can't travel and go to concerts? Isn't that what you wake up and make money for? Those two things? Oh, food. I guess you add that to the list. Food as well. All righty. But it's just postponed, so perhaps it'll be the spring and whatever. So good afternoon. It is so lovely to see you all. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Rick Scott. I am the operating partner and principal broker for the Keller Williams offices in Western Connecticut. Most of you, I think, have been on at least a Zoom call in the morning or some other training or mastermind with me in the past. If this is your first time, welcome. And yes, I do go off on little tangents about things that aren't really relevant, like Erasure concerts from time to time. So bear with me, we'll get to the content. We got a bunch of people popping into the waiting room, so let me just get them in here. So this is always more fun when I can see your face. So if you have a camera, I'd love for you to turn it on. If you don't have a camera, well, that's okay. If you have a camera and you don't like the way your hair looks today, I promise we are okay with that. We think you look beautiful anyway. So come on down and turn those cameras on. So by a quick show of hands, I just wanted to see kind of who we have in the room as we continue to fill up. How many people would this be your first run through the content and the material in Ignite? Just by a quick show of hands, either your real hand or your digital hand or yes in the chat, whatever it is. Let me open my chat so I can see what y'all are talking about. Okay, there it is. All right, so a whole bunch of you first time through. That's awesome. Welcome. We're excited to have you here. How many of you not your first time? So at least two or more. Yeah, wow. So that's a whole lot of you as well, right? So it's about a half and half room. That is spectacular. Do me a favor. Besides the fact that I encouraged it in my email, right? Because I encouraged 600 people to attend, but there's 38 of us in the room. So clearly me just saying, hey, if you didn't sell 10 houses last year, or if you did sell 10 houses or more, right? Come on down, because we're going to change it up and dive back into the basics. If you've been through this before, if you've been here before, just somebody, one or two or three, unmute, and I'll call on you as you unmute. Tell me why you're here. Tell me why again? What's the point? Go ahead, John.
So my first time around Ignite was not too long ago, but I was kind of hiding out in, because I was still working. So I don't know if you guys remember from the last time, I'll be like in the corner of my job trying to be on the Zoom calls and still take stuff down. So I wasn't really in my implementing phase, but now that I have a lot more free time on my hands, time to put some stuff into action.
I love that. I love that. Yes, and we're glad you're not like hiding out under the counters and in the closets of your last job like you were last time. You can always tell when John had a question because he'd say, yeah, hi, it's John. Let me, like, what? I can't talk loud. I'm at my job. That's why I love you. Okay, Dana.
Yeah, I felt like it's very energizing, and every session, whenever each session came to an end, I'd have so many ideas swimming in my head that I wanted to implement. And since it's January, it seemed like a good way to kick off the new year.
Yeah, that's so spectacular. And Dana, I have to commend you, because it's almost like you were looking over my shoulders reading my notes, because one of the things that I wanted to throw out to you that we were going to just do a little bit differently is 5 minutes or so before, right? So what Dana just said is, at the end of each session, I had all these ideas that I wanted to go and implement. And I find that to be the case with a lot of us, right? When I go to a training session or to a seminar or a webinar or a mastermind, I have that same thing. And so one of the things that I'd like to do at the end of each of our sessions, I'm going to start this right today, is take the last 5 minutes to give you a minute or two to kind of organize your top couple of ideas from our 2 hours together, and then spend the last 2 or 3 minutes just kind of sharing those ideas about what it is you're going to implement, right? Because one of the things that it's really important to recognize is that spending 2 hours a day, 3 days a week in this session is great. However, if we're not going to actually leave at 6:01 and then go and implement stuff, this simply becomes entertainment, right? You really need to take the things that come out of these sessions, take the content, take what you hear from me, what you hear from your colleagues, what we hear from each other in our mastermind sessions, and really go and put it in play. Implementation is the key here. So I want to at least give you an opportunity to collect your implementation thoughts at the end of each session and commit to some implementation items. Sometimes you only have 24 hours or 22 hours, right, until the next session, because we do work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 4 till 6. However, by Thursday, you now have a whole bunch of days to get things taken care of. So getting into action quickly, instead of deciding that you're going to learn for 5 weeks and then start your career 5 weeks from now, right? A much better path forward. My expectation of each of you, because I can tell already just by the hands and the excitement and the nodding of the heads and that this is a group that wants to get going, that wants to get started. I get that learning is important, and I get you have to know how to do some stuff. But I think that what you'll find from some of your colleagues who have some experience or who are in the room, but what you'll find is that sometimes just going and doing it is the best way to learn, right? And so my expectation is that as we go, you're picking up clients, right? We should be able to count closings by the time we finish together in 5 weeks. Not just count things that you've learned. I want to know how many new listings you've taken, how many buyers did you sign up, how many contracts did you write, how many people put people in contract for a closing. What does your pendings look like from your Ignite experience, right? So let's set the bar really high. If you're in our MREA mastermind, what you know is that the beginning of that book says, where's Tony Derbyshire? Oh, he was right there and he stepped away. Tony, what does that say? Well, because it was your aha from Monday. What does the first part of MREA say? It's 3 little phrases. I think you're muted.
Think big, aim high, act bold.
There you go, right? Think big, aim high, act bold. Just PS, forever moving forward, that's just going to be like my Tony Derbyshire go-to. Whenever I need to have that, and I'm just going to Tony, because it's his baby.
My line, but fine.
Indeed. Gary won't mind, I promise. All right, Anna, and then Stuart, and then Donna, and then we're going to move forward.
Yes, it's my 5th time I'm taking Ignite, and I would say that only maybe on the 4th time I start to kind of like dig into it very deeply. And I would say, Rick, your energy is so contagious. It just put me on a fire. And for the last months, I would say December, so I had 3 listings, and it's just incredible. From 0 to be on 5. I mean, for me, it's a lot. So I would say 5th time, it's kind of like maybe beginning compared to Dana, but I just start to understand more deeply what you're saying. So I don't want to miss any session.
I love that. And congratulations, because you know what? Now that you say it, you're 100% right. As the guy that signs all the listings, you did go from 0 to 60 in the last like 6 or 8 weeks. Bam, 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 a whole bunch of new listings. So that's awesome. I am so excited for you, and excited that you are back. Stuart.
Eric, so for me, it's twofold. First of all, repetition is very important. I always learn something new. And second of all, to be in a crowd where my colleagues are motivated as well, that's really inspirational, and it gets me going.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You know what? Can I tell you a little secret to kind of piggyback quickly off of what Stuart just said? As most of you know, our annual convention is called Family Reunion, right? And that happens about a month from today in Orlando, Florida this year. We're always in a different spot. We kind of travel that around. Every February, though, it's our 4-day educational convention event. This year, back in person versus last year, which was all digital. However, if you're not interested in going down to Orlando, we do have a digital version available to you that we can talk about perhaps tomorrow or Thursday. My point, however, is if I'm truly transparent, every year we get to right around now, and I think to myself, oh man, family reunion's coming. I got to get myself, figure out how to leave the office. And when my kids were smaller, right, you know, it's like I have to find a way to have my kids, someone watch my kids, or they have to go someplace. And oh man, oh man, oh man. And I'm always like this wine machine, like, and not like a good red. I don't mean that. I mean like a wine, like a wambulance, right? About that experience. And then I get over it and I register and I get myself there. And I'm telling you, I get into it and I come home and I'm like a different human being, because I'm around so many extraordinary people and the energy there is just awesome. It's like that recharge. And so I'm thrilled, Stuart, that you brought that up, because my hope is that our time together is that for many of you. It's like a recharge. It's all right. You know what? Man, let's go and think even bigger. Let's go and do even more. Let's just go and kill it, regardless of what's going on out in the world. That's what's going on in the world is going on in the world. That doesn't necessarily have to change your results, right? Only if you choose to allow them to change your results. Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate that. Donna Gilbert.
Hello. So some of you know that just basically whenever Ignite is given, I'm there. I'm just in the room. I've been with Keller Williams for 6 or 7 years now, and if there is Ignite, I try my darndest to be there. And why? Because this is where the fundamentals of the business live. And this is where we get to practice it. Learn it if you haven't learned it. It's also where you get to practice it. And it's also where you get reminded of it. For me, it helps me stay on track. And we were reading in the MREA book, the Red Book, the book club, we were talking about how it's like a magical book. Well, Ignite is kind of like that as well. Every time I take Ignite, I'm like, Rick, did you say that before? Because I don't remember. Because you're a different person, you're a different place in your business. And so different things are going to speak to you when you need to hear them. And talking about speaking, pay real close attention to the language that Rick is going to work with us on, especially when it comes to the listing presentation and doing objection handling. I mean, it is really powerful, it's specific, and it's on purpose. So I come back so I can hear that over and over again. And Rick and I and I don't know who else is on here, but a few of us just came back from the ALC retreat, and we've had the honor of having Kristen Cole via Zoom like this. And one of the things that she reminded us of is how important the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So if you take that even larger, look at the people. I think it was it Stuart who said to be on this call and be in this room with some of the other people? That's really important in this business. Make sure that you learn what you need to learn from people who actually know what they're talking about, because they have studied it, they've processed it, they've gone back to the well to relearn. So that's why I'm here. We've got the master teaching us. I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, that's That's a whole lot you just said. And you know, a couple of things. Part of the reason that this class seems like the MREA book in terms of it being a magical book, that it seems different. And Don is right. Every once in a while, well, maybe every single session, right? She and I will text back and forth to the point of, was that in last time? Did you ever say that before? And here's what's interesting. Most of the time my answer is no, because the other reason that we try really hard not just to present the same material over and over and over and over again. The industry moves and changes, right? The local environment for our industry moves and changes. And so to keep up with what's going on, right? Perhaps there was a brand new idea that we heard from somebody this morning on the James Shaw call at 8 o'clock, right, each day, that pivot shift call. We'll talk about that probably tomorrow. Just for those of you who don't know what that is, we'll give a plug for James's call because it's an awesome place to start your day at 8 o'clock. And the idea of learning something new and then being able to bring it to you immediately. So it's why we keep doing this over and over again. And it's an awesome opportunity to come back and keep up with the new so that you don't become a dinosaur, right, between Ignite sessions. Because I don't know about the rest of you who are actively in the business today, but it's possible to become a dinosaur in a month or two, right, in between sessions, just the way that the industry is changing so quickly. And the last thing I'll say about what Donna said is, you know, Donna's been in this course so many times that I don't really consider her a student in this course anymore. I really consider her a co-facilitator, and the idea of her experience with this material that she's then taken, she's kind of proof of concept, right? Right, Donna, would you agree with that? Right? It's like, okay, so I came and I studied, I learned all this stuff, and then I went out and did it, and lo and behold, look, it worked, woohoo! And so then I just did it more and came back for more and did it more. And what was 2021 your best year in real estate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So lots to learn from each other. I'm always so excited when we have agents with experience and brand new agents in a room at the same time, because there's so much to learn, not just from whoever happens to be speaking, but from the stuff that goes on in the chat, right? There are a lot of people who are instructors who are like, okay, limit the things going on in the chat, pay attention to what I'm saying. You know what? I'm not one of them. Let's be as interactive as you possibly can with each other, because there's so much to learn from the experiences that almost 40 of us bring to the table. Perfect. So as excited as I am, I want to do a couple of things before we dive in. The first is just kind of give you a quick overview. And again, we're going to work things a little bit differently this time, because we will work at least one mastermind into each session. How we're going to do that and still get through all the content, which I struggle getting through in the 15 days that we actually meet, I'm still not sure, but we'll figure it out. Because one of the things that I have learned over time is jump out of the plane and knit your parachute on the way down. We'll just figure it out, right? Sometimes that means knit really, really quickly. And yet, when you knit quickly, you get that parachute done and you land on your feet. So we will make sure that we have time for everything we need, and masterminds as well. The second thought I wanted to share with you is kind of how this will go down. Today into tomorrow, we start where almost anything needs to start, and that is with your head. Right? We're gonna talk through some ideas and concepts to make sure that your head's in the right place as a business owner, to make sure that you're launching, relaunching, or reaching further, depending on what you're doing and why you're here, and make sure it goes well. Because without having your head in the right place, right, the skill portion of it, the rest of it kind of falls flat. You have to have your head in the right place, because you have to think big, aim high, and then act bold, right? In that order. That's what Tony taught us. Tony's thinking, all right, I think I have to go take an early dinner because this guy's killing me. And then lastly, I wanted to, you should have seen an email from I think it went out from Shai earlier today with the materials for tonight. However, that's the last time we're going to email out materials because there is a link, and I'm going to pop that link in the chat for you. There it is. That's a link to a Google Drive where all of your power sessions plus all of the supporting materials for Ignite can be found. So if you're unsure which power session we're going to be in, that's okay. You can kind of hold till we start, because frankly, we're not going to finish a power session each time we meet. And sometimes we meet, we're not going to be in those power sessions at all. We're going to be in either ancillary material or no material at all. However, if you're big on following along in the quote unquote book, that's where those materials can be found. We will spend some time in power session 1 tonight, and then move into the second half of power session 1 and some of power session 2 tomorrow. So you can check that out in that Google Drive. The good news about that Google Drive is that if there's anyone on this call who isn't quite in our system yet, right? Some of you, if you're brand new licensees, you haven't been entered into our system yet, you won't be getting the emails, or you won't have access to KW Connect, which is the other place you may be able to find these materials. So we created this so that everyone has access regardless of where you stand. And I don't know if we have any guests from outside of our organization on this call tonight. However, you are welcome to those materials as well. There is no password or KW specific retinal scan or anything like that to get into those materials. So you're all good. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to start with some ideas. I want to plant some seeds. And then we're going to listen to Gary for just a minute or two and talk about that a smidge. And then I want to open it up and mastermind around the idea that I asked you to come prepared to talk about, right? I told you all this morning, come tonight prepared to discuss what you've noticed over the last 12 months. What have you noticed about the industry? What are your challenges? What are your successes? What's going on? What are your ahas? Where do you think everything's going? Let's just have a conversation around the industry and where we're at today, poised at the beginning of a brand new calendar year, right? So if you didn't hear that this morning, well, you now have a little time to kind of think through what that looks like for you. We just want to know what have you noticed over the last year? There's no right or wrong answer, right? Because it's just it's what you've noticed. And so where I want to start, however, is reading through some ideas. And the other reason we're going to do this is to just make sure that everybody who's on the call gets an opportunity to kind of be heard, right? And anyone who's nervous about speaking or being heard, we're just going to ask you to kind of get over that real quick right now. And so what that means is, what on earth is he talking about? And everyone's nervous. Oh, God in heaven, what's he going to make us do? Somewhere. There we go. So what I'd like to do is just run through this sheet. You don't even need it. It is in your, it's in that link if you want to print it out or put it on your own screen. It's called Some Thoughts. However, I put it on the screen so that everyone can see it, so that we can work from this one. Let me just get my participant list back up. There we go. We can work from this one so that no one has to struggle. Can everyone see that? Dana, can you see that? Is that clear on the screen? Okay, good. So here's what I want to do. There are 30 of these, and there are just over 30 of you. So it's kind of one for each of you. We won't get to everyone, but we'll get to almost everyone. So here's what I'd like to do. I'm not going to call on you. What I'm going to do is just have you unmute or raise your little digital hand, and I will then call on you that way. We're just going to run through these. We're not going to necessarily have a big, long discussion around each of them. I just want you to hear these concepts. I want to plant some seeds in your head about business building and business growth in real estate. I want you to hear some of these things and say, wow, what does that mean? I never thought of it that way. Because then we've planted seeds, AKA questions, in your head that you will then start to answer as we spend time today, tomorrow, and then over the next 4 or 5 weeks together. Sound like a plan? All righty. So let us start. I think John was first. John, go ahead and give us number 1.
Leadership and business development is about changing the mindset around how you spend your time.
Yeah, that's no real explanation needed there, right? You just have to figure out how you spend your time, because how you spend your time determines your outcomes. Brett, go ahead and give us number 2.
Sure. The forces and pressures of growth feel awesome and challenging if you want growth, and feel terrible and frustrating if you don't want it.
Oh, yeah, we got to stop there just half a second. That's a good one that Brett just read. The forces and pressures of growth feel awesome and challenging if you want growth, and they're awful if you don't want it. So what's the point there? The point is you need to move yourself to a growth mindset so that accountability, right? When you own your own business, without accountability, nothing happens, because you're your own boss, right? You don't come in and punch a clock each day and someone doesn't tell you what to do. When you own your own business, you are your own boss. And so bringing a level of accountability to your own world is necessary. A lot of people struggle with accountability because it feels like a straitjacket. It feels frustrating. It feels like someone's scolding them. If that's how accountability feels for you from a business mindset perspective, you need to understand that that's simply because you're not in a growth mindset. You're either bringing way too much judgment to the table, or you're not really interested in growth. I'll give you an example, right? We will have weekly discussion on Thursdays. We'll have weekly discussions about you jumping in and starting to do lead generation. There will be some of you who will push way back on that, especially this Thursday, because in your heads, you're thinking, well, wait a minute, we don't know anything yet. Like, he talked about having a mindset, and we read some things on a piece of paper, and that was what we spent our couple of days doing. Well, how does he expect us to go and actually run a real estate business Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday until we see him again on Tuesday? Don't worry, we're going to make that clear to you on Thursday. However, on Tuesday, when we come back and I ask some questions and we report in some numbers and we talk about successes and challenges, without a growth mindset, some of you will feel like I'm picking on you a little bit. I'm not picking on you. I'm just taking a firmer stand for your income than you currently are, right? And that's all about your mindset. It's all about that growth mindset. Because when you're firmly planted in that growth mindset, man, those kinds of things, that feels, it's like, okay, give me more. What else can I do? Go, go, go. Make sense? Sean, well, you get a short one.
Yeah, I was hoping you're going to grab my name on this one. Stop wasting time.
Oh, for the love of anyone. Actually, Sean, read it again.
Stop wasting time.
Yeah, and now say it really loud.
Stop wasting time.
Brilliant, brilliant. I couldn't have done it better myself. Guys, I'm going to tell you what, you as achievers on this call, man, oh man, you've got to start looking at the things that you do versus the things you don't do, or the things that you do that aren't dollar productive. And you need to stop wasting time. You need to kind of get up and get on and get busy with the things that actually matter. We're going to focus you on all of those things. By Thursday, you'll know what many of those activities actually are, right? If you don't know already. But you got to be focused. And you got to stop wasting time. Okay, I ran out of hands. So who else?
I can go
Donna, 4.
because I love number 4.
I love it.
Businesses are built to earn a profit, nothing else.
Yeah. Talk about that. You said you love it. Why do you love it?
Well, so it's a concept, especially as real estate agents, new licensees, that we don't often understand that we are running a business. You know, it isn't just, this is not a paycheck type of job every 2 weeks. The money doesn't just show up. You've got to go out and do it. And when you're making decisions and you're moving forward, making sure that the decisions that you're making are actually bringing money to the bottom line. They're creating a profit. This is about building a life, funding the perfect life. And it starts here with profit.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
Is making money the same as earning a profit?
No, thank you for asking. That's often confused as well. You can make a lot of money. You can make, $100,000, but if you spend $100,001, there's no profit there.
Yeah, 100%, right? So businesses are built to earn a profit and nothing else. And here's the last thing I want to say for anyone who is new or newer. Hold on, I want to be as big on your screen as I possibly can to say this. Oh my goodness, there I am. That's a whole lot of Rick. Let me say this out loud to you. If you are new or newer to the business and someone has told you that it takes a year or 3 years or however much to make money in real estate, please recognize that whoever said that to you doesn't know what they're talking about. Be careful who and where you get information from. There is no reason why any single one of you and every single one of you can't start making money by the time we finish our time together in February. Some of you will not believe that just yet. However, trust me when I say to you, trust Donna when she says to you, everyone has the opportunity to earn quickly if you do the right things. All righty. Let's get rid of me being so enormous on your screen. There we go. Okay. Where's our list? Let's get back to it. I need my list. Alex, go ahead, give us number whatever.
Number 5, when you demonstrate high value, people stop complaining or worrying about what you are worth and instead just sit back and get ready to enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to tell you what, that has everything to do with commissions. That one was written specifically for commissions. When you demonstrate high value, which means you have to build a value proposition that people are attracted to, so that when you sit with them and have a conversation and then talk with them about being hired, it doesn't matter what the numbers are around how you're being hired, because people are excited about hiring you, and the numbers around that become less important. That doesn't mean you'll never have a commission conversation ever again, but I will tell you that the more time, the bigger and better value proposition I built, and the more confident I was delivering that value proposition, the whole idea of having a listing consult and having a commission conversation with sellers, it just started to go away. I didn't have to have those anymore. And just by the way, I was a 6% guy up until the very minute I stepped out of the everyday listing and selling of real estate. Erica, number 6, please.
If you focus on listing count and manage it throughout the year, everything else will show up.
Oh goodness, that's for certain. Listings, listings, and listings. Listings is the path forward, right? If you're in our MRE book club, which by the way meets Mondays at 11, except this coming Monday because that's MLK Day, we're going to do that on Tuesday at 11. If you're in that, what you know is we just stopped short of a conversation about listings, but we got through the 3 L's, leads, listings, and leverage. It's not leads, buyers, and leverage, it's leads, listings, and leverage. Right? It's all about listing count. And if you focus on finding more and more listings, everything else, buyers show up, income shows up, more signs show up, marketing shows up, money shows up, confidence shows, everything else shows up. So focus on listings and then just drive that throughout the entire year. Donna Doyle, number 7, please.
Communication and gratitude are the root of the relationship side of the business.
Oh man, that's Donna, could you do me a favor and read that one again?
Communication and gratitude are the root of the relationship side of the business.
Yeah, and in your estimation, Donna, is the relationship side of the business really important?
It's everything.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Right?
it's everything.
So lead generation, ultimately, guys, is the idea that you're going to create, nurture, and convert relationships. You almost don't get lead generation, or at least lead conversion, without the relationship side of things. And what we're going to spend time helping you understand is that building a business that is successful, you have to root things, you have to root relationships in both communication and gratitude. When you're always coming at things from a place of contribution, that's a very different business than a business that's all about me, 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 me. So communication and gratitude, underline those two words. Number 8, Sylvia.
Hi, okay. Do your clients feel the mind-blowing customer service experience immediately or ever?
Yeah, there's a really good question, right? And I get pushback sometimes from people on that one, because they say, well, are you accusing me? I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just asking a question, right? And as business owners, I think it's really crazy important that we ask ourselves this question often. And notice I didn't ask, do your clients feel customer service immediately? I said, do they feel mind-blowing customer service immediately or ever in your business? When does that show up? Because remember, if relationships are everything, when we bring mind-blowing customer service to their whole experience, whether they're buying, selling, or both, do you think that that strengthens the relationship or weakens the relationship?
Strengthens.
Yeah, it strengthens the relationship. So if strong relationships grow our businesses, why wouldn't we be really concerned about whether or not we're having this mind-blowing customer service experience? And we're going to talk about how to create a mind-blowing customer service experience. So watch for that. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Number 9, Kate, go ahead.
2 pillars should be delivering 2/3 or better of your business. Pillars, they just spit out appointments, or they are not pillars.
Yeah, thank you for that one. That's a great one, right? The pillars of your business. It's kind of like the stool, right? I'm sitting on a stool and the stool has 4 legs, right? You could say that they're the 4 pillars of this stool, because I could probably get away with, if it was configured differently, get away with only 3 of these. However, just 2, guess what? Rick ends up on the floor. So recognize that as we go through source of business together, I'm going to ask you at the end of likely week 2, when we're finished with source of business, I'm going to ask you to pick 2 minimally of those sources and really start pushing your lead generation plan through those 2 sources to see if you can develop them as pillars. Because the pillars, as Kate told us, they just spit out appointments, or they're not pillars. All righty. Number 10, Carly.
If we are not modeling best practices, then we are spreading bad habits to others.
Oh, my stars. Yeah, that's a really good one, right? Best practices. Now, here's what's interesting about best practices. Here's what I've learned. Best practices doesn't mean that it's the only way to do it. It just typically means it's one of the more effective or efficient ways to do it of all the ways that are out there. That's a best practice. And if we're not modeling those best practices for ourselves, then what we end up doing is just spreading bad habits to others. Remember I said earlier, be careful who you get information from. Be careful that you're not listening to someone who sounds like they know what they're talking about. However, they're not modeling best practices. And so now you're hearing bad habits from somebody else, thinking that that's the way to proceed. And we're just kind of spreading a whole like a pandemic of bad habits to each other. We already have one pandemic. We certainly don't need a second one. All right, number 11, Julie, please.
Sorry, I'm at CVS. When Warren Buffett says invest in what you know, you are a real estate professional. Do you own investment real estate?
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much for asking that. And I love the fact that you're at CVS. That's awesome. Thank you. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So Warren Buffett, right, the world's most successful investor, says invest in what you know. If you are a real estate professional, what you know is real estate. So my question to you is, do you own investment real estate? And if not, let's make sure that we're pushing in that direction. If so, let's make sure that we're helping others to do the same, including your clients and your database. We can teach them how to do that. If you don't know how to do it, that's okay. I'll teach you how to do it. I have been a real estate licensee for 23 years. I've been a real estate investor for the last 10. I can teach you how to do those things so that you can then go and teach that to your clients. Let's turn our database into an army of investors. Man, oh man, I'll tell you what, if we started doing that today, and then those people taught their children what they learned from you, in a generation or so, we could change the distribution of wealth in this country. Think about that. You think what you do isn't important? Chew on that one a minute. Number 12, Dana.
Okay, 12 and 13 kind of get me scratching my head. So the fastest path to net 1 million is to clear your head, then start hiring someone talented every 90 days.
Yeah, so let's stop there for a second. The fastest path to net 1 million. Now, so netting 1 million, in the MREA is step number 3, right? First you have to think 1 million, then you have to earn 1 million, then you net the 1 million, right? And then step 4 is receive 1 million kind of passively, and step 5 then becomes give 1 million. That's not in this book, but Gary added it for the MREA too, which is not out in publication just yet. And so what does this mean? What it means is, if you're focused on growth, you need to recognize that your time should be spent securing appointments and writing contracts, which means all the other stuff could and perhaps should be being done by someone else. Now, number 12 doesn't mean that everyone should go out and hire an assistant 90 days from now. That's not what this says. However, for those of you who want to fast track growth, recognizing that no one succeeds alone, especially at high levels, you may want to start adding people into your real estate world sooner than most people do. And what that might mean, I'm just trying to read 13. I may be spilling over into number 13. So I'll read 13. You have to get over it in terms of hiring an assistant, right? When done properly, that person adds 18 to 24 closings to your year. And so here's what 12 and 13, I'll take them together, are really communicating to you. Do you spend the time that you spend working in real estate on dollar productive activities? Are you lead generating and lead converting and then going out and writing contracts with those people that you convert? Or are you spending time fixing your website? Are you spending time doing the paperwork? Are you spending time organizing your database? Are you doing things that somebody else could be doing instead of the things that actually make you money faster? All 12 and 13 are saying is, let's recognize that there are things that you could pay someone else to do that might fast track your ability to achieve a higher level of success and income than if you keep doing it all yourself. I'll give you an example. For somebody who's brand new in the industry, you may want to consider transaction management. What is transaction management? Well, once you sell a house, you have an accepted offer, you hand off that transaction to the transaction manager, and they kind of shepherd it through to the closing. There's not a whole lot more for you as the real estate agent to do because you pay someone else to do that. It costs about $250 per file to have that transaction manager go and manage your transaction from the time you have the accepted offer to the closing. Your time is very minimal. And instead of you wasting, let me not use the word wasting because that's a little judgmental. Instead of you spending that time hand-holding that transaction through to the closing, You can spend your time, your $300 or $400 an hour time, finding new clients and writing new contracts and paying someone more like $10 or $15 an hour to do the administrative side of the business. Our industry does a terrible job of helping explain what I just explained to you. Instead, our industry says real estate agents as solo practitioners have to do it all and then just figure it out. And that it ends up being a trap. Does that help, Dana, in explaining 12 and 13 mean?
I guess, and maybe this is just a mental block for me, is I guess, being my business just, starting up, sort of gearing up, like what would be, should you look for as some sort of indication that you're ready to take on hiring people? Like what would you need to be happening in your business life to say, okay, now is the time to pull the lever and get somebody for any of these things?
Yeah, great question. Don, you want to answer that?
Oh, I was going to answer something else, but yes, I'll take a stab at that. What I was going to go back to was number 1, which talks about what leadership and business development is, which is deciding how realizing you have to spend your time differently. But here's some of the early signs that you need help, particularly administrative help, and that's the first help you're more than likely going to need. You're overwhelmed. You're up till 12 at night doing paperwork. You're getting calls from your MCA saying, where is that piece of paper? We need it. And you're not really sure where it is. You wake up in the morning and you're like, oh my God, I've got to walk through today. It's those little things that say your eye is not on the ball. And also just knowing that for $250 to have somebody take care of all the paperwork means you can spend that time doing lead generation, which is going to be a lot more productive than the $250 you're going to spend.
Yeah, 100%.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, Carly.
I guess like my biggest thing is, I don't know if I wouldn't say I'm like a control freak, but I think in some instances it's like really hard to like trust someone else with your transaction. Like even with dealing with like attorneys and stuff, like I'm running into so many problems on 2 of my closings right now because like attorneys just can't even get it together. So it's like you're doing all these different people's jobs. And I think for me, it's like I don't want to give somebody else that job because then I don't know if it's getting done. And then I'm constantly going to be checking in with them anyway. So it's like, might as well do it myself.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's where my struggle is, like really like putting that faith into somebody to like really get it done and not have to worry about it at all.
Yeah. So here's the good news, Carly. You're in a room where it's safe because we have a phrase for what you just described, and it is called control freak. Welcome to the club, right? We're all that. Right. We're all that level of, you know what, high achievers. I'd rather just do it myself. If I have to take time to explain it to someone, I might as well just do it. If I have to check in anyway, I might as well just do it. Trust me, I get that. Right. However, at some point, what you will find is that becomes a limitation on your growth. Scaling your business stops at some point when you have to do everything, because here's what's real. There's only 24 hours in a day and you do have to sleep. Right? Some of you have to sleep less than maybe I do, but everyone needs to sleep. And the whole idea of scaling your business is about enjoying the fruits of that business. And if you have no time to actually have a life because you're still doing everything, like what's the point? So I get it. And what I have found is for many of you, transaction management, prior to hiring some kind of assistant, part-time or full-time, transaction management is that system that you can put in place to start to wean yourself off, to say, okay, I am going to give up this portion of the transaction. I'm going to find and hire someone who does it better than me. Trust me, I stepped out of my business. I was a listings and sales agent. I formed a partnership. That partnership formed a team. And then I became the team leader of our first market center, I don't know, 117 years ago, whatever that was, back in 2006, I think it was, right? So 15 years ago. I had to get used to saying things to people when they would call me, like, hey, you know what? Thank you so much, Carly, for calling. I actually have a different role in our business. at present. The good news is that we have hired, or I am in business with, someone who is a better listing agent than I ever was. Let me put you in touch with Debbie Orr, and she is going to take care of you from start to finish. Of course, if there is anything that you need, I am always here, and I'll certainly be checking in with you from time to time. And I would loop Debbie in on that on the listing side, and she would go and take the listings. I never lost anything, not a one. There's nobody who didn't say that, right? Who didn't recognize that made sense. And we talked about this on Monday in the book club. Donna, what did we talk about in terms of standards?
Yeah, we talked about the ego that sometimes gets involved, especially as your business starts to be successful, thinking that, oh, they'll only work with me. And actually, that's not true. And it's in the Red Book. It's not true, because what it is that people are loyal to are the standards that you set for your business that they see show up as exceptional service.
Yeah. When it's all about you, it's all about you, and it's impossible to ever leave it, right? One of the things I wanted to show you, which is why I was being weird and kind of had you looking at my nose for a little while, is this book called Six Steps to Seven Figures by Pat Hyben. He's a KW agent down in Maryland. This is a great book if you want a quick read. It's kind of short with big type, one of my favorite kinds of books. And ultimately, the big lesson I learned from Pat talks about in that book that when he started in real estate, you can stop hold on one second, I have a live mic. He recognized very quickly that his strength was building and creating relationships and then converting those relationships to appointments and going out and selling property, right? That was where he really shined. And what he realized was he was terrible at all the rest of it, all of the administrative stuff. So right from the get-go, he went out and hired 2 administrators. His business lost money in his first year or so because he went out and hired 2 administrators to set the foundation, because he didn't want to create bad habits for himself. So he lost money for year 1, knowing that he had these salaries to pay, because he didn't want to get himself into the habit of doing all the paperwork and doing all that stuff. He wanted to go out and just sell and be with the people, right? Because that's where he discovered were his strengths. So my answer to Dana's question, when do you know? My personal opinion is that every single person on this call should be utilizing transaction management from the start. Because that $250 you'll spend on transaction management should free you up enough that time you're not spending on that transaction, you can go and find another transaction. That's the exponential results that start to show up. Now, if you're doing transaction management and not reinvesting that time into finding more business and producing more business, well, then that's a different story. Either you're doing that then because you just don't want to, you're okay earning a little less because you don't want to have to do the paperwork, right? That's okay too. Just recognize that the whole idea of spending that money is that you then take the time you're saving. Remember, money buys us time. That's the whole idea of money. You use money to buy yourself time. And so when you use money to buy time on the tail end of a transaction, when you reinvest it, you create more faster to justify the expense on the tail end. If I were to do this all over again, if I were new in the business like many of you are today, the one thing I would change is that I would find leverage faster. I would find more people to do more of my business so that I could spend time finding clients, converting clients, and selling them houses, or listing them and selling them. That's what I'm good at. All the rest of it was always a distraction for me. I was the one who was always in trouble, right? With the phone calls and the this, you don't have that right. Why are you doing it? Where's your thing? What's the thing? Sorry, I'm out selling houses. I thought that's what I was supposed to do, right? And we get sucked in. And then for some of us, because the industry says that's what we should be doing, then we think that's the real estate role. So we think we're working, we think we're doing all the right things, and we're not making the money that we want to make because we're spending all of our time on administrative stuff, thinking that's what real estate agents do. You see the trap there? That's why 12 and 13 exist. So thank you for challenging that, Dana, because it's a great conversation to have. I hope that answered some of that. We had Moses and Marlene. Marlene's hand is still up. Marlene, go ahead with your question. I think you are muted.
Okay. I didn't want to read, but I will, whatever number we're on to, 14 maybe. I raised my hand because I had a comment about the previous conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so isn't that sort of a little counterproductive to the idea of building relationships? In other words, in my experience, there's a lot of things that go on, between either a seller, if you're on the seller side, or a buyer on the buyer's side. They want to speak to you. They want you to deal with things. They call you a million times. There's just so much stuff that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, are you talking about just the administrative part, the paperwork, or is that assistant going to be getting involved with, those hundreds of phone calls that could be coming to you back and forth during a single transaction?
Yeah, so I'll answer that two different ways. My first answer is my version of transaction management is once we have an accepted offer, there's very little that I'm going to be doing on that file. Save perhaps once a week, making a touch base phone call to the client to say, hey, how are things going?
Oh.
Right? Everything else is being handled by the transaction manager. Now, remember, all of that occurs. You don't sell a house and then just vanish. You have expectation setting conversations where the client understands that here's where we're going to spend a chunk of our time together. And then Maria is going to be working with you from here to close. Again, I'm always here if you need me. I'll be checking in from time to time, but Maria's job is to take you from here to here. The second way I'll answer that is this. Most of us have a doctor that we like, right? And the doctor and I have a relationship. However, when I go to see the doctor doesn't come in and take my vitals and my temperature and weigh me and do all that stuff. He has somebody who handles that portion of it for him. And then she may come in and see what's going on. And then she leaves, and then somebody else comes in to kind of do the administrative portion with me. It's really no different. And that doesn't mean I don't have a relationship with my doctor. It doesn't mean I don't feel the love from my doctor. My doctor is there for these steps, right? If my doctor is going to operate on me, if I'm having surgery, right, there's a whole team that preps me before I even see the doctor. Then I see the doctor, we go out, the doctor does their work, and then I pop back up. There's a whole team taking care of me on the tail end to get me through to the closing, right, out the door and from recovery. And the doctor will check in once or twice to make sure I'm okay. I don't see it any differently than that experience. And we do that all the time. Does that help, Marlene?
It helps. It's just not the way that I ever dealt with real estate. I was, the type of person I handheld someone, from an initial meeting, to either closing on a buyer or closing.
It's 5 o'clock.
Seller. I handheld them. So that's why this approach seems, a little unusual to me. But
sure.
But
can I add something to what she's saying?
Yes, Carla, go ahead.
I get what she's saying, and I've done the same thing. And I'm kicking myself for it now because I work with investors. So it's like now these people, like, yes, I have that relationship with them, but now it's like they think that I'm their BFF and they want to call me and talk about whatever for an hour. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, I just missed 12 phone calls while I've been on the phone with you, and we're not talking about anything. Like, as of right now, like, this has nothing to do with business. This has nothing to do with making money. So now I'm kind of like kicking myself. But like, I get what she's saying, because I'm the same way. And I think it's almost like a downfall sometimes to be so hands-on, because now these people have this expectation that like, oh, like I can call her, you know, at 10 o'clock at night and have an hour phone call. And I got to a point where I'm like, I set those boundaries, and now I need to reverse them, because people have these expectations and it's making me miserable, and I have no time, and I basically just get to sleep. Otherwise I have no quiet time. So I think like, if you have people like that, definitely like take a step back and maybe be like, hey, I'm done working, you know, 7:30, 8 o'clock, like phone goes off. I actually have like an away message on if you have like the do not disturb while driving mode. And I put that on. It says like, I'm either after business hours or I'm with a client. So I'll get back to you when I can.
Yeah. Well, and to Carly's point, and actually I'm going to do a quick aside, because one of the things that Carly does that I love is, you know, I'm the guy who sends, you know, 900 mass emails out to everybody. So, and what I get back from Carly almost every time is a bounce back.
Yeah, I learned that from the 4-hour work week.
Right. And so what Carly's bounce back says is, hey, got your email. I'm paraphrasing. Hey, got your email at this moment. Like, if you're receiving this, I'm either with a client or at a closing, and I will get back to you during this time blocked period of time between 3 and 4 o'clock later today. Again, I'm completely paraphrasing what Carly's bounce back says, but it communicates with me so that I know that she's received my message and that she's just doing something else right now, and sets a time when I can expect to hear back from her. I love that, just by the way. I meant to say that to you the first time I sent an email.
I get a lot of comments on that, but it really is so useful. Like, it helps you kind of like prioritize and not feel like, because I get like anxiety where I'm like, oh, like someone just texted me, like I have to reply to them. And now I'm trying to realize, like, you know what, this isn't an emergency. I'm not an ER doctor. Nobody's dying. You can wait 4 hours for a reply. Like, it's not urgent.
Yeah.
So I think like setting those boundaries and being like, no, I'm not available 24/7. Like, I have a life and I have other clients. I think that really helps.
Well, and here's the last thing I'll say about this 12 and 13 is this. Understand that at some point you cannot scale with a level of handholding that some of you are used to. You simply cannot grow, because what happens is you continue to promise way too many people that same level of service, and you start to fail at that service. And now you're not treating the clients the way you yourself want to treat the clients and what you've set the expectation as, because there's just, you simply can't humanly do it at scale. So what that does is it inherently keeps your business small. That mindset of I have to be involved from start to finish, it inherently keeps your business small instead of allowing you to grow bigger. If you start making some of these adjustments, and I can tell you, I have been where you are. I understand it. I've done it, and I've done it successfully, such that I sell houses now and have for the last 15 years, and I don't do any of it. I have other people who do that. And I don't even mean owning a brokerage. I mean in my sales team that still exists, right? Debbie still works with all of my clients. I just set a standard for the business and made sure that everyone in my business delivered that standard. And when they did that, me became irrelevant, and it allowed me to go and do something else and still earn in that arena. All righty. So I hope that at least gives some, and we'll talk more about this. I hope that at least gives some more information on what 12 and 13 are there for. We could spend the rest of our evening going back and forth on that. So number 14, Marlene, go ahead and read 14 since you're still there.
It's not up on the screen.
Oh, you're 100% right. Let me do that for you. Hold on a moment. There we go.
Okay, 14 is, here we go. Do you plan for low-end pay and expect high-end talent? You get what you pay for every time.
Yeah, and so that's just another part of the conversation about getting into business with others, hiring somebody else, right? The point is, don't cheap out, because you'll regret cheaping out on it, because cheaping out will just come back to bite you. All righty, number 15. I don't have my thing up. 15. Who's going to read 15? Who do we got? Come on, Erica, go ahead.
Successful people are willing to do what others are unwilling to do.
Yeah, that's an important one. Successful people are willing to do what others are unwilling to do. You may start to ask yourself over time, okay, am I willing to do that? You may hear things over the course of the next couple of weeks and say, okay, am I willing to do that? Recognize that achievers and successful people are willing to do the things that unsuccessful people look at and say, oh, I don't think I want to do that. I don't think that's going to work for me. I think, somebody else can go and do the door knocking. I'm not interested in that. I'm not a door-to-door salesman. Those kinds of things. It's all about mindset, right? Number 16. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, the proper role for a virtual assistant is to support the full-time executive assistant. See number 14 above.
Yeah, and that's just a comment on as you grow, right? The virtual assistants that you could put in place eventually needs to be replaced by a human that you can see and touch, who's there and in the office, right? That's all that says. Number 17, go ahead, Alex.
17, what if you just decided to have a seller appointment every day? Can I take a crack at answering this one?
Yeah, please.
You'd probably do over $250,000 a year in GCI.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. What if you just decided to have a seller appointment every day? What if you just made that your standard and then figured out how to bring that into your world, right? You may not know today how to make that make sense. That's okay. But you'll figure it out. You have to decide it first, though. Just have a seller appointment every day. I will tell you that when I was still in the field, every day when I woke up on my drive into work, I'd ask myself the same question. What are you going to list today? What are you going to list today? That set the stage for my entire day. What are you going to list today? Number 18. Who's taking it? Come on, don't be shy. Danielle, go ahead.
Leaders are readers, earners are learners. What are you reading right now? What are you learning?
Oh, yeah. So you know that we have a challenge going on right now, right, to support your team leaders, 2 books a week. The first week was the MREA, right? So if you haven't read that, that one's a good one to start with. Plus we have a book club going on right now, so you can kind of dive into the book club and get more info on this book. The other from last week was Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. And then this week, our 2 book a week challenge has The One Thing, which is Gary's kind of non-real estate, but everything about real estate at the same time book with Jay, and a book called Mastery, which apparently is difficult to get. So I would focus on The One Thing for this week. You got to keep filling your brain with new and cool information in order to continue to grow. Number 19, probably one of the most important ones on this page. Who's going to take it? Go ahead, Eric.
You want me to? Okay, I'll go. Don't be afraid to fail, just fail faster.
Don't be afraid to fail, just fail faster. There are some of you within the sound of my voice who are afraid to fail. For you, I encourage you to read the book by John Maxwell called Failing Forward. You just need to learn how to fail faster, right? It's not a matter of not failing. Set something up, do it, and if it doesn't work, well, then don't do it again. Get up and do something different. But don't live in fear of what if it doesn't work? Because my question to you is, what if it does? What if it works more brilliantly than you ever thought imaginable? Right? What's the other side of what if I fail? Well, what if you fly? I don't know. What do you think? Number 20. Cal, go ahead. Give us this one.
Quit whining and get to work.
Oh, praise Buddha on that one. Quit whining and get to work. My stars. I must say that to myself 10 times a day. Oh, stop. Just stop. Just stop. 21. Go ahead, Dana.
Do you have uphill goals and downhill habits? No one ever goes uphill accidentally. Be on purpose.
Yeah, I love that. I got that from John Maxwell, right? Everything that you want is uphill. And most people, everything that they do is downhill. Nobody ever goes uphill by accident. You only roll one way, right? You coast down, you don't coast up. So what do your habits look like? Do they match your goals? If you have uphill goals, do you have uphill habits to get to those goals? And that's all about being purposeful. Purposeful. Yes, Donna, on that one?
Yeah, just, and we're going to talk a lot more about doing things on purpose when we're going through the 6 personal perspectives, when we're talking about going from being entrepreneurial to being on purpose to being, stepping into our business. I can't wait for that.
Brilliant. While you're unmuted, can you do 22?
I can, wait a minute. I'm busy translates into, I don't understand what to do with my time.
Yeah, man, oh man. I'm going to tell you what, I used to be one of those guys who said I'm busy a lot. And now it's to the point where sometimes one of you will call me and say, oh, Rick, I know how busy you are. However, and it actually makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because now when I hear the term I'm busy, I don't say it any longer. When I hear it in my head, the translation is, I don't understand what to do with my time. And so now I'm thinking that you think I don't know what to do with my time because you're calling me and saying, hey, I know you're busy. However, I have a question for you. So what that says is, whenever you need me, please don't say, hey, I know you're busy, because I'm not busy. I am not busy. I am scheduled down to almost every last minute of my day, usually down to 10-minute blocks for returning phone calls and getting things done. So I am massively scheduled, and I'm disciplined to stick to my schedule, but I'm not busy, because busy translates into I don't understand what to do with my time. It's also, in my opinion, it's also a bit of an ego thing, right? Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, who cares? Who isn't? Who isn't, right? Number 23. I think I saw Jorge unmute before. Go ahead, 23, Jorge, thank you.
Okay, amplify your leadership, you will have more impact on more people.
Yeah, amplify your leadership. And so what that one says to me is this. We sometimes think that being a real estate agent is not necessarily a leadership role, right? If you're not the broker, or you're not the team leader, or you're not part of the agent leadership council, right? I'm going to tell you what, as a business owner, you've already raised your hand and stepped into a leadership role. You lead people forward. You lead your buyers and sellers forward to create the results that they want. And when you get really on purpose about understanding what leadership is and how you can amplify that leadership, you'll end up having more impact on people, which means you'll be more attractive to people, which means more and more will start to come to you in terms of business. Number 24. Go ahead, Nikki.
Can't afford to buy an or another investment property this year. Sell more houses.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what, this is my version of something my grandmother has been telling me since I was no years old. My grandmother is going to be 93 years old in about 6 weeks, and has had a massive impact on the way I think, and certainly the way I think about money and work. And in my grandmother's world, right, people who brag about having a good old job, or I work 2 jobs. In my grandmother's world, her answer to that is, so get a 3rd, right? Is there more time in the day? Are you doing what you need to do to make sure that you're earning enough to take care of your family and create extra to push towards investments so that at some point you can be financially free, right? So she hears those kinds of things about woe is me, I don't have, from the perspective of, well, then go fix it. And so this is my real estate version of that. You can't afford to buy an investment property. You can't afford to buy another investment property. You can't afford to pay down your credit card debt. You can't afford to send your kid to college. Well, guess what? You live in an industry where the only person who gets to tell you how much you can earn or not earn is you. It's an unlimited opportunity. So if you need more, if you want more, just go sell more houses. And yes, I know what some of you are thinking, because A, I've been doing this a really long time, and B, I can read minds. Some of you are thinking, oh, well, that's easy for him to say. It's not so easy to just go sell another house. Yes, it is. It really is. And my hope is that 4 weeks from now, you will agree with what I just said. Because this is not a complicated industry. It is not a complicated process. You just have to be willing to do the things that bring the results to the table. And then, by the way, do them again and again and again and again. We call it repetitious boredom. Do it again and again and again and again and again and again. Number 25. Who's going to take that? Barbara, go ahead.
Okay. What does your collateral material look like? Do you have a buyer's guide, a seller's guide, a real estate investing guide, a second vacation home guide, a pay your kids' college tuition through real estate investing guide? You need these to either create or support conversations. I like that.
Yeah, indeed. Right. And here's the thing. So a couple of things. We have some of those built for you that you can foundationally just use the foundation that we built and then build bigger and better. We're also on the tail end creating some more collateral material on your behalf that will be ready in the next couple of weeks. And while we're doing all those things, between what we already have, the new things that we're doing, you need to take a look at this and recognize that collateral material is important to get hired to do those things. People just like collateral material. It just legitimizes you as a professional, right? So look around and see what that looks like. You know what I would do? If you want to figure stuff, I mean, we're going to walk you through some of these things in the course of the next couple of weeks. However, until we get there, just go on Google and Google buyer's guide real estate. There's a million examples out there. Seller's guide real estate. There's a million examples out there. Right? We'll work through by the end of our time together this week. I'll show you where you can find the KW one so you can begin that process. Number 26. Go ahead, Donna.
If you have more buyers than you know what to do with, you need a showing assistant or a buyer's agent. You do not need to drop your listing focus in order to service those buyers.
Yeah, so that just brings us full circle with make sure that you're always focused on growing the list side of your business before you worry about buyers. That's not to say that you shouldn't be working with buyers. That's not what I said. I said, be careful that your focus is not on the buy side. Unless you make a specific choice to focus your business on the buy side and start to leverage the list side. Most do it the opposite. If you've made a choice to do the other, well, then that's okay. Then that's a different conversation, right? Just recognize that that's not as scalable as the list side of the business receiving your focus. The point with 26 though is people come into your world to help you deal with an increase in buyers so that you can continue to service your sellers. Instead of being so distracted by the time it takes to service the buyers that you stop seeking out the sellers. That's 26. Number 27. Come on, we're almost done. A couple more people. Jorge.
Residential agents don't talk about investment opportunities. So our clients don't think that we do that. And then
Sorry, you said 27?
He's very low. It's hard for us to hear him.
Okay. Yeah, Jorge, there might be something wrong with your mic. I'll take 27. So residential agents don't talk about investment opportunities. So our clients don't think that we do that. And then they go and seek out a commercial agent for help with investments. The point there is make sure that your database understands that you understand how to deal with helping investors. You guys will be the first people to know this. I will give you the exact date and time right now. I believe it is February 3rd. I will be doing, yes, February 3rd, Thursday, February 3rd at 6:45. I will be doing a Zoom real estate investing seminar for all of your databases. And so what that means is, instead of you doing your own seminar for your database, we've done this. Many of you have attended it. Many of you have sent your databases to it. It's an investing seminar that all you have to do is push your people to it and be on with them so that they can hear, leverage me. I give a hour-long or so conversation around investing February 3rd at 6:45. So Thursday, February 3rd. Here's the point. A lot of residential agents don't talk about the investing side of the business, even though investors out there are buying residential properties. And so investors then think that we don't do that. We just have to make sure they understand that we do that. And that comes down to you communicating with your database. We're going to give you an opportunity to bring everyone into a Zoom opportunity. I had hoped by now to get us back into the market centers for live. We're going to do it one more time virtual, and then hopefully in the spring go live again. So watch for that. Number 28. Go ahead, Cal.
Number 28. Read MREA and MREI again.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, read The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. If you've read them once, read them again, because they're just packed full of massively important information. Number 29. Who's going to take that?
I can do that. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Go ahead, Kate. Jorge, I'm sorry, we're still having trouble hearing you. I can hear you very faintly, but nobody else can. Kate, go ahead and take that.
Okay, the definition of profitability is that you have money left over to fund business growth and investments.
Oh, man. Isn't that one awesome? The definition of profitability is that you have money left over to fund business growth and investments. Guys, one of the things that's really important to me in our time together, not just in Ignite, but our time together on this whole journey through your real estate career, is to make sure that we don't just focus on having conversations about finding more listings and selling more buyers, but that we continue those conversations to help you grow your income, because for most of us, your income is your biggest wealth building tool. And so when we grow our income, we can then use some of that income, because Kate just told us to do it, right? You're profitable. The definition of that is use some of those profits to buy assets to fund business growth and investments, right? We've got to use our money wisely. I want to make sure that we're all focused on our personal balance sheet. We're focused on growing net worth. We're focused on things over and above just earning an income. That's how we take real estate as a job, turn it into a business, and then ultimately turn it into a foundation for building a really big life. Regardless of how big you want your real estate business to be, you can build a big life if you keep your expenses low and always invest the extra, the profit, either back into your business or to purchase assets, that cash flow, such that you can then create financial freedom. Number 30, Dana, bring us home.
The whole idea of capping is that you get to keep 30% more money to invest and grow wealth. Go.
There you go, right? The whole idea of our capping compensation model, where at some point the 30% that the brokerage gets turns off and you get to keep it for the rest of your year. The whole idea of that is to help you fund investments and grow wealth. So it's about don't build your life at the 100% level and then struggle when you have to give the 30% to the brokerage. Build your life at the 70% level or below, so that when you do cap, that extra 30% that you're getting for however much period of time is really extra, so that you're saving for college now at a high level, or you're buying an investment property, or you're paying off debt if you still have debt in your world, right? That's the whole idea of our capping model, is to help you create a life by design. It's to help you eliminate financial struggle and create financial freedom. Whew. All righty. That was fun, wasn't it? Those are some 30 good thoughts. And here's what I want to make sure you understand. The reason we spent so much time on that is because those 30 concepts should start eating a little hole in your brain, saying, okay, well, how do we do all that? What does that look like? I want you to start really thinking bigger than perhaps you thought you would think in a class about real estate. For some of you, you're thinking, okay, so he just talked about personal balance sheets and net worth. I'm already thinking bigger than perhaps listings and sales. And if that's the case, good, that's the intent, right? That is absolutely the intent. How you get to so much of that is a decision, and for a lot of the rest of it, be the rest of our time together. So if you have questions about, all right, well, some of that sounds a little bit over my head. Some of it was for some of you, because some of you have been in the business for about 16 minutes. Right, so some of it was a little bit like, okay, really? I feel like he's talking to me a year into my business. Here's what I want to challenge. I want to challenge the whole idea of being new. I want to challenge the whole idea of relaunching one's business. I want to challenge the idea that just because you sold 12 houses last year, you can't sell 36 this year. Because that's just about systems and then implementing those systems. And it's the systems that we're going to spend a good amount of time on the next couple of weeks. Right? What do you think? Should we take a vote? How many think I'm nuts? Okay, well, there's a couple. That's all right. I tend to agree. However, I'm like nuts in a good way. I'm the good nuts. Yeah, oh, Tony, I love what Tony just said. When you're new, you have no bad habits to break. So if that is you, if that describes you, if you've been licensed for 15 minutes, guess what? Wave that like a flag, because you haven't had the opportunity to do it like many of us did, a way that then we struggle to scale. A lot of us had to relearn stuff that we learned a long time ago and had been working for us for a number of years. It just wasn't working the way we wanted it to work. Then all of a sudden you change and you think, oh, why didn't I do this earlier, right? All righty. What time is it? 5:28. My goodness, we have all the time in the planet. We have 32 whole minutes. So here's what I'd like to do next. I promised you a mastermind, and so I want to make sure that we get that in. And the topic to throw out there was, what have you noticed? What have you noticed in the last year in the industry? And here's the reason I want to have this conversation today. I want to make sure that we're all thinking about our opportunity in 2022 from the how do I want to say this? From a place that isn't necessarily market driven. Because regardless of where the market's, what the market's doing, you have a choice to make, right? You have a choice as to whether or not you want to achieve or not achieve. If the market's going like gangbusters, well, that's oftentimes a help to your achievement. If the market's dying, well, then you have a slightly harder uphill battle to create your achievement, and yet you can still create your achievement, right? Love that. So let's have a quick conversation around what you have noticed about the real estate industry in the last 12 months and how it affects how you see what's going to happen in 2022. Go ahead, Tony.
I feel like a couple things. Number one, things have settled down just a little bit. I think that, buyers agents, when they're not completely frustrated, or excuse me, buyers, when they're not completely frustrated, appreciate you. The other thing, and this is sort of my own personal experience, which is a little bit unusual because I was actually got out of the business for a little while and now I'm back in. And I had some time to think about how I do things differently this time around. And when I was in the business before, I was a fighter. You know, I fought for my buyers, I fought for my sellers, and I could be a little forceful, and I won a few battles and lost a few wars that way. And I told myself I wouldn't be that way. And I found it remarkable that that when I act a little bit less like a jerk, I attract fewer jerks, and that the world, this is going to sound, but the world needs a good example in this craziness. And I've thought about that, and it's been really helpful in terms of getting me out of my head that the world, you know, our world with all of its craziness needs a good example. And, you know, I find that when I'm, you know, agents or buyers need agents to be calmer than I used to be, and more resolute than I used to be. And sellers need me to be, you know, the same thing. And you know, with all the, I mean, it's hard out there in terms of all the emotion. But what I'm noticing is that, you know, slowly but surely, as I learn to act a little bit more mature, it's something that's really needed. So.
Yeah, that's a great aha, Tony. I appreciate you being transparent and sharing that. And what I pulled away from what Tony just said is we attract what we put out, right? So if all of a sudden you're working with a whole bunch of unsavory characters, it might be time to take a pause, look in the mirror, and say, I wonder why that is happening. Let's reassess, right? But the other thing I heard him say very clearly is he's focused on coming from contribution. He's coming from a place of kind heart. He's coming from a place of education. He's coming from a place of, if I do good in the world, is the world a better place? And Tony's decided the answer to that is yes. And I couldn't agree more. I can remember arguing a long time ago. Do you remember when you'd go to bridges and there'd be tolls and you'd have to put the coins in the toll? Perhaps I'm dating myself because this was like before Easy Pass, right? And it would drive me nuts when whoever I was driving with would pull up and hand the money to the toll taker and just drive through and not say, hi, how are you today? Thank you very much. It drove me crazy when people would dismiss the human beings in the toll plazas and pretend they weren't there. Because the way I saw that as ignoring the world. And you're sending a message now that you're not interested in having the world pay attention to you. And the way the world pays attention to you is you pay attention to the world, right? With a kind heart. People don't, I think I just saw Debbie get on. I might screw this story up, but it's an important story. Debbie and I listed I think it was one of the largest homes we ever listed together, and that was a $5 or $6 million house on Beaverbrook Road in Weston. And we were having a conversation with the homeowner, and why don't you pick up the story, because I'm going to tell it wrong, and I don't want to tell it wrong.
We were doing our due diligence and asking questions about the house and the age of the roof and who had done some work. And Mr. Von Cohorn, was that his name, said to us, roofer? A roofer? I don't remember the name of the roofer. He's just a roofer. Was that the story?
Yes, that was the story, right? And we kind of looked at each other like, oh, well, I guess we fall into that same category. Are we going to get in the car and he's going to be like, oh yeah, that was just realtor 1 and realtor 2, right? The blonde one and the brown haired one, right? I mean, it was such a dismissive attitude, right? That he presented that day. And that's not the way you attract people. It's not the way you change the world, right? You change the world by that kind heart, that educator's spirit, that making sure you come from contribution. And we're going to spend a lot of time together making sure that the business you build is a business that comes from contribution, because when you do that, not only does it make you feel good, and not only does it help change the world for the better, because God knows the world can use as much help as possible. So if each and every one of us has to just play our part, well, let's do it. The brilliant part about it is that, guess what? The business actually grows faster when you do all those things, and you root them in something that actually means something to you and to other people. So the results show up faster as well. Tony, did you want to add to that? And then we'll go to Don.
Just real quick. I got back into this business kind of in the middle of COVID, and I had nothing. I was starting over, and I did cold calls around listings from the office. And my biggest takeaway from this, and it's something that I remind myself of and need to hear myself say it from time to time, is my experience in calling strangers in COVID was that human beings crave what I refer to as meaningful engagement. That's not the telemarketer calling. That's not the guy from the police union. That's me calling and saying, hey, the world's short on good news, so I'm calling strangers to share some. A house down the street from where you live sold for $50,000 above asking. What in the world can I help you with? And if you approach people the right way, I've been surprised as to how people will engage you. As long as you're professional and real, and as sincerely a bearer of good news.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty valuable takeaway from all of this craziness.
Well said. Well said. Donna.
So I love what Tony just said. The part I hung on to there at the beginning was the fact that, in the craziness, we have to be the people who bring the sanity. We have to get them down off the roof so we can all get to the table and chat it through and come to some sort of meaningful resolution that's great for the buyer and the seller. For me, this market has proved to me once again that this really is a skills-based business. It's not that crazy when you know exactly what you're doing, because you've either done it, you've gone through the bumps and come out successful on the other side, or you shadowed someone who has, or in the middle of it, you are figuring it out. You're figuring it out with a calm head, thinking through what's best for the client. It really, I got to say, I'm actually kind of loving this market. I really am. I love seeing the level of realtoring, being raised to where people have to figure out the strategy. It isn't all about throwing more money at something. There are other solutions, and finding out what those are and staying in control, making sure our clients get the best information so that they can make the best decisions.
Yeah, 100%. Sean.
So I'm one of these little more than 16 minutes, but less than 30-minute people. I got into the real estate this past year. So some of the stuff that I've noticed that's been really difficult as a newbie to real estate is the frustration that I'm seeing by my clients trying to purchase a home, and they're being outbid ridiculous numbers, and when you try to explain to them that this is the number that the listing was on MLS, and now that's what you should bid, and then you find out that you're way off. It's like it's just something difficult that I'm seeing, and hopefully it's I don't know if it's hoping that it's changing, or maybe I'm hoping that I understand that the list price isn't the price that it's going to sell at. So that's just what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, I love that you brought that to the table, because the anyone who has been in the thick of it for the last 12 to 18 months has experienced exactly that, right? And my expectation, I do not have a crystal ball. However, my expectation is that that is not going to go away for the at least the first half of this year, if not the entire rest of this year. I think interest rates ticking up a little bit will only make it worse before any of it gets quote unquote better. I'm reluctant to say better, simply because there are opportunities in every market. The opportunity that we each have on the buy side, right, is to always get better at the consultation up front and make sure that everyone we take out of the office to see even one home understands the arena they're about to play in. Because if they don't understand the arena, they simply don't have a shot at winning. And that's just frustrating for everybody, right? You feel like you're driving all around, writing all these offers for no reason. They feel like, and here's the big negative of that. At some point, if you're not careful, it comes back on you. Because remember, buyers struggle to recognize their own ability to change the outcome. They have you, they hired you. And so all of a sudden it's like, well, all right, so why aren't we winning these houses, right? Do I need to change my real estate agent? And so making sure that we have really clear conversations right up front, including, and Sean brought this right to the table, including the conversation that Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. One of the things that's important for you to understand right now is that the list price is the minimum expectation that the seller has. The minimum expectation. It's not the ending point, it's the starting point, right? To pay less than list price for most properties right now doesn't exist. And so the buyer who says, I need to get a deal, that's awesome. Let's revisit this in about a year. Right? That's just real. I'm not being flip about that. And I don't give that to you as a script to be flipped to your buyers. They just have to understand the arena they're about to go and play in, or choose not to play right now. And here's the struggle. This is not necessarily a buyer skills issue. It's more a lead generation issue. If you had more buyers in your pipeline who you were willing to have this expectation setting conversation with to make sure they are armed to go out and battle and win in the arena that they're forced to go and play in, you wouldn't be as afraid of all the ones who say, that's not the arena for us, right? That's more about you selling a house than it is preparing the client for battle. Right? You kind of see the point I'm making there, right? So for me, I'm always looking at, okay, here's the scenario. I have to look in the mirror and say, what can I do differently to create a different outcome? Instead of waiting for the environment to change or waiting for someone else to do something different, right? Because we only are in control of us. So I think there's a whole, and we're gonna dive into this really deep when we hit the seller consultation. So this is just kind of a preview, but Sean brought a really important thing to the table, and that is you have to prep the buyers. You need more buyers in your pipeline because some of them will choose not to play in this arena. Some of you have to have conversations that instead of showing people who say they can afford $600,000 houses, in today's market, you need to be showing them $525,000 houses so they can bid 600 and win. Instead of showing them the $600,000 houses and losing them because people are paying $650 and $675. Right, so there are strategies that we need to be using, strategies that we'll discuss in greater detail about how to win on the buy side today. Without those strategies, though, you might as well just stay home and bang your head against the wall. It will feel better, I promise, for you and the buyer. Carly.
So I kind of am adding to both Tony and Sean's in regards to, I had a friend in New York who made an offer on a house that was like $50,000 over asking, but the other offer, you know, had no contingencies. It was all cash, no inspection. And he was like, does my agent just like suck? Like, should I get a new one? And I was like, honestly, no, like the seller was probably a 14-day cash close. Like that's what's going on in this market type of thing. But I have noticed a lot of buyers are starting to hold off, like agents I speak to who had a client interested in one of my listings. Now they're deciding to put, searching on a hold right now. So I've been noticing more of that. But in this business, I've definitely realized like this is really a people business, and it's all about like mirroring who you're having an interaction with. And I think that's like probably the biggest lesson that, and not everybody has like that natural ability to kind of like mirror as far as tone and, what type of conversation you're going to go down like pathwise. But I know a lot of agents are like, oh, don't bother like networking with agents. Like it's a waste of time. But I know personally with all these bidding wars, like I said, I work with a lot of investors and, things were going well over asking, just like, any market, any properties going over asking. But I made it a point to be extra kind and, really connect to the other agent. And I've actually won quite a few. I mean, this is my first year, like I just started last December, but I won quite a lot of bids by befriending the other agent and them telling me, hey, like, this is kind of where I need you to be. Like this, our other offer is here. Like, I kind of need you here and your terms are better, like kind of just getting a little bit of insight. And that definitely has helped. So I do think that being kind and being like a genuine person and really being able to connect to people definitely plays a huge role, especially in this market where there's a lot of competition.
Yeah, 100%. You get a virtual high five on that one because it's crazy important, right? It's crazy important. Relationships matter. And that also goes for relationships with the agents on the other side of transactions. Yep. Right? When you're the listing agent, make sure that you're treating everyone fairly and communicating, just an overabundance of communication so that you don't get this stamp on your head of, the last time I had an offer in on when they were the listing agent, they were a jerk. So I think I'm going to be a jerk back to them, right? That puts your clients at risk, just PS. And if you think that doesn't happen, it shouldn't happen. And yet it does. Just like it happens when you have the positive relationships, your clients get to win because you've taken the extra time to cultivate that. I love that.
Yeah, I think definitely there have been like a few rude agents and like they kind of just, they leave a bad taste in your mouth. But if the house isn't for, that specific client, but definitely being on top of everyone. I send everyone a text when I get a showing request, just like letting them know, just feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Like being an over communicator in this market definitely will help as well, and keep checking in.
Yeah, 100%. Donna, then Dana, then Debbie. All the D's on the top of the screen.
So this is everything we're talking about. These are the skills I was talking about. This is the skills part. This is the strategies. It isn't as easy as it used to be. You can't just throw it in and wait for it to happen. Yeah, network with your co-broke like crazy. You should be her or his new best friend. I mean, finding out what is it that they need. If you can, find out what's their biggest fear. Are you fear that it's not going to appraise, that, find that information out, chat them up, and then be the one that rides in on the white horse. That absolutely moves you to the top of the pack. And in terms of having the frank conversation with your buyers before you go out, don't go out without it. Really, do tell them this is what we're going to have to do, and ask them, are you willing to do it? But here's the most important part. It isn't just that one time. Each time their offer is rejected, and just plan on it, because sometimes it's a learning curve. They said yes, they would do whatever. And yet when they get into it, it's like, oh, I have to do that. Yeah. So every time it gets rejected, you take the entire story back to them and say, this is where we were short. The other one was willing to do a appraisal gap. Here's what that means. Remind them they don't do what we do every day. You have to bring that pain back to the table each time till finally, eventually, they will turn to you and say, okay, this is my house. What do I need to do? And suggestions like you're qualified for 600,000, but these are going for 650. We do need to look at houses that are in the 550 range. help them work on that. And the last thing is, and this was a concept that, became new to me, even though we're out there doing lead generation every day, or we should be. When it gets to be a tight inventory market, we can't rely on other people's lead generation practices. This is when our lead generation practices become so important, particularly when we're working with buyers. That helps alleviate the frustration. It's your listing. You found it for them in the neighborhood they're looking for, and you get to go in first.
Yeah, to Donna's point, thank you for that. Here's the follow-up. When you sign a buyer, waking up every morning and checking the MLS for a new listing is not the level of service that they expect from you. They expect more, and your contract actually demands more of you. You have to be looking everywhere, under every rock, not just on the MLS. What for sale by owners are out there? Am I dialing through neighborhoods that they want to live in to see if anybody else wants to sell? Right, that's what Donna's talking about when she says we can't rely on others' lead generation practices. That's where we have to take that and own it ourselves. Solve that issue for our clients. Well said, well said. Dana.
Well, before I say what it was I raised my hand about, I just wanted to add to what Carly was saying. I don't work with buyers too much. I've worked mostly with sellers, but my last buyer was in Greenwich a couple of years ago, and that's a totally different kettle of fish how they do business there than what I'm used to in the Westport Weston area. And if it wasn't for the fact that I hit it off with the seller's agent, I don't know how I ever would have gotten through that deal, because it's just so different how they do business there. So
Indeed.
It really pays to have those good relationships with the other agents. But what I raised my hand about was with the multiple offers and the bidding and all that. I mean, I noticed that some houses are going for, listing price, and others that could be the same price point and they go 50, 75,000 higher. How do you gauge, and this can wait till we're talking about buyers, but I just always wonder, how do you gauge upfront before you go into it? How the house is going to go? Is it going to be one that goes closer to the listing price, or are you going to get into a bidding war? How do you gauge that?
Yeah, great question. My fast answer is statistics and recent history will help guide that, right? And so that's my fast answer. I will defer the longer answer to when we are spending time with buyers and multiple offers, because we're going to spend a real good chunk of time on that. But I think my fast answer is use the data that you actually have available to you to help give you at least the guesstimate. Sometimes it is a bit of a guess, and then people have to figure out adding on what I call insurance on top of whatever the data says to make sure they come out on top. And we'll go through some scripts around that, Dana, very specifically when we talk about buyers and multiple offers. Debbie Orr.
Carly made me think of my great-grandmother, Rosie, who used to say, this was her philosophy of life, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And I never quite understood why I wanted to catch flies, but I think the message is, it was like, really, who wants flies? The message is sweetness wins, and everybody's suggestions of helpfulness and kindness, there's not enough of it right now. There are organizations who are locally, regionally, and even globally working on greater civility in the whole population. And we have a great opportunity to begin that. Everything is a right now opportunity. And with the people that we're dealing with today and tomorrow in baby steps. And that's where it starts. And here we are on the front lines.
Yeah. And for those of you
who catch flies.
Okay, ew. And for those of you who think that one cannot be kind and direct, or kind and firm, right? Or kind and objective, I will tell you that you can be both of those things. Sometimes you have to practice it. Let me restate that. You have to practice it. I'll get rid of the sometimes, because there's nothing conditional about that. If that's not natural for you, it is not natural for me. It is natural for me to be very direct, to be short, to be firm. That is a natural style for me. I have to practice rounding out the smile. I have to practice sometimes wrapping pillows around some of the things that I deliver to people in a way that they will then hear it positively. So oftentimes you have to take where you're at and adapt to be speaking to someone where they're at, because they'll always hear you where they're at, just by the way. They don't hear you where you're at, they hear you where they're at. So it's incumbent upon us to make the adaptation to be heard the way they're going to hear it, the way you want to be heard, if that makes sense. Lisa Bennett, bring us home with the last question or a statement.
My question is, and I think my frustration for this past year with all the offers that I submitted for buyers was when I would try to get in touch with that listing agent ahead of time, to find out, to ask a few questions or to get a feel for what the owner is looking for, where we really needed to be at. I would never get a response. They seem to be so overwhelmed with the activity on the listings, or the offers that were always coming in that, I was lucky if I even got a text back from them, with a deadline. How do you deal with that? Because I was going back to Donna and Carly, about, building that relationship. And some of the agents, I've done business with before, they know me, but they just, and we get along well, and others I haven't worked with, but it seemed like pulling teeth to get any communication with them.
Yeah, and I think that my answer is sometimes you have to pull the teeth, right? Sometimes that's just what it is, and you have to be willing to kind of reach in their mouth and yank a little bit. And so the idea of, and sometimes it's a skill issue on the other side, right? And sometimes it is sort of they're in that O word that I don't say. It means like when a wave is coming over you, there's that O word. A lot of you still say it. I don't say it anymore. Someone can put it in the chat if you want. I just won't read it. I'll close my chat so I don't see it. So some of you are saying, what the hell is he talking about? Right, but there's that word. So sometimes they're in that mode. I'll give you a quick aside. I don't say or use that word anymore because I believe that word is one of those words in the English language that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. I believe that when you use it, you become it. So I just choose not to. So the idea of I'd rather just go and get into action to create a different result and feel differently about the result. So right, instead of using that word, because that word gets you stuck. So my answer to Lisa's thought is this: sometimes it is that, and you have to be willing, right? And the way I handle it again, I'm a real estate investor, so I am a buyer and have been a buyer for the last 18 months. I haven't sold a thing, but I have been a buyer and a successful buyer over and over and over and over and over. I bought a lot of property in the last 18 months because I was willing to fight in the arena that I knew I had to fight in. I was willing to do the things. I had a conversation with myself, right? And I knew what I had to do to win and was willing to do that. I played in an arena that I was comfortable in, so that if someone came back and said, now we're going to this level, well, at some level I wasn't comfortable. So I would make sure that I was viewing property that I knew if I added X to, I would be able still in that comfort zone for me. All the things that we've talked about over the last 12 to 18 months to help you create wins on the buy side. However, sometimes I would run into lack of communication as well. And so what I would do is a couple of different things. The first thing I would do is always make the phone call. We resort to text and email sometimes. I find that many agents are so not used to their phone ringing and getting a phone call that they're almost curious. Well, who could that be? I think I may just answer that. It's been a long time since I actually spoke on the phone, right? Instead of with my thumbs. So I start with a phone call, leave a happy smiley message. then I immediately text and immediately email. So I go all three at the same time to give the agent an opportunity to answer me in whatever way is easiest or fastest or more comfortable for them. And sometimes that means late at night when they're finally going through their emails, I might get a response and see it the next morning. But I found that strategy to do all three of those approaches kind of at the same time. The other thing that I believe I have mastered at this point is, and I don't say that lightly and I don't say that very often, but one of the things I do believe I have mastered at this point is the ability to be the sweetest, kindest pest in order to get what I want, which means I'll make a phone call, and if I don't hear back, or I do my text and I do my email, I don't do the question mark in the text and push send again. I'll send something else that says, hey, you know what, I am certain that you are completely underwater and I am so sorry to be a pest about this. Just curious if you had just half a minute to give me an answer on this thing that I'm working on for 123 Main Street or whatnot. It's always about recognizing that the second someone feels pushed against a wall, their response is to push back. And the pushback is normally, well, screw it. I'm not even going to I don't need her buyer because I have all these other ones, right? So you may be being judged without even realizing it, right? And at the end of the day, sometimes you don't get the information. And so then it's best guess and a discussion with the buyer client to say, look, I have gone this way, that way, and the other way, and we're just short on information. So absent that information, let's do the best that we can. Let's write things up that if I don't know when the seller wants to close because I didn't get that information back from the listing agent, just simply write in at seller's discretion. And then you've accomplished the same thing. You don't need the date that they want to close. You can just simply make it more generic. So I think that's the path that I would encourage to solve that issue. It is 6:02. I want to make sure I honor our time together and get you out. So tomorrow, 4 o'clock, same bat time, same bat channel, we will dive into more content tomorrow than we did today, and spend a little more time in power session number 1. I really enjoyed our time together today. I hope you did too. I hope that you had you had some kind of light bulbs go off, and it looks like Debbie's going to bring us out with one last thing.
Because at 3 o'clock, before you start, I'm going to do command for Ignite, and it's going to be a bit of a command users group. So join us. We're going to start with contacts, and I'm going to show you the value of organizing your contacts so that you can communicate with them in a systematic way.
Yeah, brilliant. I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me. So on Wednesdays, don't forget, 3 o'clock in this Zoom room, Debbie will walk you through command, right? Whether you're brand new to it or you have some experience with it, she will walk you through command based on your use of it in your business. And then we will roll right into 4 o'clock. So tomorrow is a 3-hour stint for many of you. Watch with technology, and we'll start back in at 4 o'clock when I join you. Have a lovely evening. Remember, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., we do not have a call. Instead, we have a social media webinar. I will be sending out the link one last time tonight to make sure you're plugging into that social media webinar at 9 o'clock instead of the 9 a.m. Crush It call. Guys, have a great evening. See you soon.
Thanks,
Have
Rick.
a nice night.
Rick?
Thanks.
Hello, Rick?
Did somebody need me?
Yeah, Rick, this is